A broken engineer chose an empty space station to die until a mysterious dragon girl arrived. The universe outside the station was a black ocean, speckled with distant stars. Out here, Station GS 117 drifted like a rusted ghost, its once polished hull scarred by micrometeorite strikes and crusted with old oxidation. Inside, the air recyclers hummed tiredly, and Tyler Grant limped through a dim corridor, one hand braced against the wall. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. Every step reminded him of the metal fragments lodged near his spine. Tyler had spent his adult life repairing things other people had written off as junk: jump drives, atmosphere scrubbers, fractured hull seams. His hands were tough, scarred maps of old burns and cuts. The bitter joke was that the one thing he couldn't fix was the body piloting those hands. Doctors had given him a countdown, maybe 18 months before the nerve damage finally strangled his lungs and heart. They'd suggested treatments to stretch it out, more machines, more clinics, more sterile walls. Tyler had said no. Instead, he'd cashed out everything: military pension, savings, favors, and bought a forgotten, decommissioned station in a nowhere sector between human and Vexery space. GS 117 had once been a busy trade post. When better routes opened, it was shut down and left adrift. Perfect for a man who wanted to vanish and spend his last months doing what he'd always done: fixing broken systems. He'd planned it neatly: restore life support, stabilize power, tidy the place up, leave it in better shape than he found it, and then quietly let his body finish its slow collapse. 3 months into that plan, everything changed. The proximity alarm shattered his restless sleep. He jerked upright in his bunk, breath hitching as pain stabbed down his back. His hand fumbled across the bedside shelf until his fingers closed on a worn tablet. "Computer," he rasped, voice rough from too many quiet days. "Show me the contact." A shimmering projection formed above the tablet. A small, battered escape pod tumbling end over end through the dark. "Life signs?" Tyler asked, already forcing himself into pants and shrugging into a jacket. "One life form detected." The computer replied in a flat, neutral tone. "Species, unknown. Vital signs, unstable." Tyler froze for half a second. Nobody was supposed to come here. Part of him wanted to shut the alert off, crawl back into bed, and pretend he'd never seen it. But 20 years in flea emergency response didn't wash out that easily. "Open docking bay 3, he ordered. "Cue emergency med protocols and full decontamination." By the time he reached the bay, moving as fast as his damaged nerves allowed, the station had snagged the pod with tractor beams and was reeling it into a pressurized cradle. Up close, he recognized the design. "Vexer," he muttered. "Older model. Customized. Not standard military issue." The Vexery were humanoid, scaled, and famously private. Their tech was brilliant, their borders touchy, their politics complicated. Relations with humans were cautious. Not outright hostile, but far from warm. So what in all the void was a Vexery pod doing in this backwater? The hatch was warped, sealed tight. Tyler cursed under his breath and hauled open a maintenance locker, digging out cutting tools. Sparks bounced off his jacket as he sliced around the ruined seam, his back screaming with each motion. When the metal finally gave and the hatch hissed open, he braced himself. He still wasn't ready for what he saw. Curled in the cramped pod was a female Vexery, maybe a little shorter than him, breathing shallowly. Her scales weren't the usual muted greens and browns he'd seen during his fleet years. Instead, they shimmered in shifting shades of violet and deep blue, like oil on water. Ridged spines ran down her back, more pronounced than any Vexery he'd encountered. Small, horn-like structures crowned her head, catching the bay lights. A long, ugly gash raked along her side, leaking thick dark blue blood. "Well, that's new," Tyler muttered, reaching for a handheld medical scanner. The readout made his brow furrow. Baseline Vexery markers, yes, but laced with deviations the database didn't have neat labels for. As he prepared a field patch, the woman's eyes flew open. Vertical pupils, rings of molten gold. Her hand flashed out with startling speed, clamping around his wrist like a vice. Her skin was hot, much warmer than a human's. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice melodic even through the translator's flat filter. "Tyler Grant," he answered calmly, despite the flare of pain in his arm. "This is my station. You're bleeding out. I'm trying to stop that." Her gaze flicked around the bay, taking in the human design, the worn logos, the aged hull plates visible through the field window. "This is a human facility," she said slowly. "How far from Vexor territory?" "Roughly 3 light years from your nearest border outpost," Tyler replied. "And it's not a facility anymore. Just home." He held her gaze. "You got a name? And a story that ends with you in an escape pod in the middle of nowhere." Her grip loosened. "Nari," she said. She tried to sit up, winced hard, and collapsed back. "I was being transported. There was an attack. I reached the pod." "Transported by who? And what?" Tyler asked. Her eyes rolled back before she could answer. She slumped, unconscious. "Figures," he muttered. He slid her onto a hover stretcher and guided it out of the bay. Whatever mess she brought with her would have to wait. First, he had to keep her alive. As he moved toward the medical section of GS 117, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully planned, quiet ending had just been completely derailed by a dragon-colored stranger. The medical bay used to be top tier, built to handle emergencies for dozens of crew. Now, it was a museum of half-working equipment and dust. Tyler had spent his time so far fixing life support, power routing, and station structure. The med wing? He'd only gotten it good enough for pain control. He hadn't planned on field surgery on an unknown alien. "Computer," he said as he transferred Nari to the main examination table. "Pull up everything we've got on Vexori anatomy." Accessing. Warning. Database incomplete due to Vexori privacy restrictions. General physiology available. Detailed medical procedures restricted. "Story of my life," Tyler muttered. "Show me the basics." Holographic diagrams lit the air. Skeletal structures, organ placement, circulatory patterns. Similar enough to humans in some ways. Different in crucial ones. Copper-based blood explaining the blue. Higher base temperature, faster metabolism, regenerative skin. Nothing in the charts mentioned shimmering purple-blue scales or horned ridges. The wound along her side was deeper than he'd hoped, exposing bone, rib equivalent, he guessed. Working through flares of pain, he cleaned the gash, sealed torn tissue with a regenerator, and administered a broad-spectrum antibiotic flagged as compatible with most Vexori strains. Use with caution. He adjusted the fluid drip to align with her higher body heat and metabolic rate. While working, he noticed more anomalies. Fine, nearly invisible scales covering every inch of her skin. The spine ridges laced with hollow channels. Strange glands near her throat with no match in the database. "What are you?" he murmured under his breath. "You're definitely not standard Vexori." He finished stabilizing her and sank into a chair beside the bed, fully expecting an hours-long wait. She woke in one. Nari blinked, pupils contracting against the light, then fixed those molten eyes on him. "You treated me," she said, voice steadier than he expected. Her hand hovered over the bandages at her side. "Yeah," Tyler replied. "You were leaking all over my docking bay. I figured that was a bad look." Her mouth twitched, the Vexori equivalent of a tiny smile, maybe. "Most humans would hesitate to help a Vexori," she said. "I've scraped enough people off burning ships to know that politics don't matter much when someone's bleeding out," Tyler replied, immediately regretting the shrug as his back lit up in protest. Nari's gaze sharpened. "You're injured as well. Old war souvenir," he said lightly. "Doctors did what they could. The rest is just management." She accepted the cup of water he handed her, sniffed it cautiously, then sipped. "You want to tell me how you ended up in that pod?" Tyler asked. The short version was transport, attack, escape. "I'm going to need the extended cut." She considered him for a long moment, as if weighing how much she was willing to expose. "I was being taken to a private research complex," she finally said, "funded by Vexori factions closely tied to our military. The ship was ambushed by raiders. I used the chaos to get to a pod." "Research facility," Tyler repeated. That usually means someone wants to poke at something unusual. I'm guessing that someone is you. Nari's scales around her throat darkened. I'm not typical. As you've seen. Yeah, the color palette gave that away, Tyler said. So what exactly are you? The closest translation in your language is Drakai, she said. A rare genetic lineage within the Vexari species. In our oldest stories, we are linked to beings your myths would call dragons. Tyler's implant translator snagged that and highlighted connections to ancient terrestrial legends. Dragon-blooded, scaled, fire-touched beings. Don't tell me you breathe fire, he said dryly. Her lips curved slightly. Not fire, but the glands in my throat produce a natural compound that can resist extreme heat and prevent ignition. My scales and tissues tolerate environments that would destroy most organisms. So your people saw dragon traits and turned it into legend, Tyler summarized. Your military saw the same thing and thought. Weapon. I'm not a weapon, Nari snapped, gold eyes flaring. I'm a scientist, a xenobiologist. My body doesn't erase that. He lifted his hands in surrender. Hey, I get it. I've been turned into a walking tool plenty of times. You're person first, tech second. Her posture eased. The Military Science Division believes the Drakai genome holds adaptations they can harvest. Heat resistance, radiation tolerance, regenerative pathways, she went on. They've started hunting anyone with our markers. My mother hid our heritage for years. A routine test exposed it. Tyler's jaw tightened. They took her. 3 years ago. Her voice roughened. And 6 months ago, they came for me. She explained how she'd refused to cooperate in the labs, sabotaged experiments, set accidental fires, corrupted data. They'd ordered her transfer to a higher security site. The raider attack had been her only opening. And now they'll track the pod, she finished. They always do. The signature will lead them here. Well, Tyler said, dragging a hand over his tired face, that's inconvenient. I came out here to be left alone, not to host a Vexari retrieval party. How far is this station from any major routes? Nari asked. Too far for casual visitors. Close enough that a determined patrol can still show up, he replied. He offered her proper quarters and tried to keep things strictly practical. But Nari, sharp-eyed, even in pain, noticed more than he wanted. Why are you here? Tyler, she asked as he showed her a small, freshly cleaned cabin. An outdated station, patched med bay, a man in constant pain who isn't seeking real treatment. You're not hiding from anyone. You're waiting. He stiffened. That's my business, he said quietly. She studied him, then inclined her head. Very well. Then I'll focus on my part, recovering fast enough to get off your station before I bring a warship to your doorstep. He left her there, uncomfortably aware that she'd read him with the same clarity he used on faulty systems. He'd bought GS 117 to have a controlled, solitary ending. Instead, he'd just accepted a refugee with a target on her back. On his way to the security hub, Tyler spoke into the stale air. Computer, spin up long-range sensors. Activate all passive defense scans. Flag every heat signature that isn't local. Acknowledged, the system replied. It looked like his quiet countdown had just become a clock of an entirely different kind. The next 3 days took on an unexpected rhythm. In the mornings, Tyler rebuilt the station's neglected defenses, cleaning dust from old turret housings, coaxing cracked shield emitters back to life, rewriting ancient security code. The station had been designed to handle pirate raids and smugglers once. He tried to wake that old muscle up. Afternoons, he hunted through GS 117's database, searching for old shipping manifests and logs. The station had once serviced all kinds of ships. Some were never picked up when the place shut down. He was hoping one of those might still be docked, forgotten. Evenings, he and Nari shared simple meals in the empty mess hall, trading stories. His from human fleet work, hers from Drakai folklore and Vexari politics. Against his will, he found himself looking forward to those conversations. By the second day, her wound was closing with impressive speed. She moved with only faint stiffness and had started helping him with tight repairs where her smaller fingers could reach places he couldn't. My grandmother was one of the last traditional Drakai priestesses, she told him one night. idly tracing the patterned scales on her forearm. She performed our old naming rites. These scales hold trace elements unique to our line. The scientists were obsessed with them. Sounds less like research and more like strip mining, Tyler said. Nari's smile was sad. That's how it felt. Their third evening together was interrupted by something less philosophical. The long-range alarm howled. Computer, report, Tyler snapped, already moving. Unidentified vessel entering the system. The AI replied. Configuration, Vexari military patrol craft. Estimated arrival at station, 43 minutes. Nari's scales darkened. That's faster than I calculated. They must have prioritized my retrieval. How many on a patrol boat? Tyler asked as they rushed toward the control room. 6 to 8. Elite teams. Good armor. Good guns, she answered. The station's defensive display flicked to life under his hands. Status of shields and weapons, he demanded. Defensive shields functioning at 73% capacity. Automated turrets rated at 65% efficiency. Electronic countermeasures online, but limited. So, not a total disaster, but nothing to brag about, Tyler muttered. Computer, start cycling shield frequencies and engage jamming. Make us look like junk, cold metal and radiation noise only. Affirmative. Masking signature. He turned to Nari. That buys us some time, but they'll eventually switch to visual sweeps. You said you needed to reach the freehold colonies, right? The Ark tourist sector? Yes, she confirmed. Getting there is my only real hope. Then we need a ship that can do more than limp between nearby rocks, Tyler said. I found one in the records. Courier vessel. Fast and built for diplomats. It's in Maintenance Bay 7. Been there for about 15 years. Is it flyable? Nari pressed. Mostly, Tyler said. Nav and life support look fine. Quantum drive needs calibration. Normally, I'd take a day. We don't have a day. Definitely not, Nari said. They'll suspect interference if the pod trail vanishes here and the station plays dead. He popped a weapons locker and keyed in his old access code. It opened with a reluctant hiss. He pulled out 2 pulse rifles, a few sidearms, and a handful of grenades. You want me to fight a Vexari patrol with you? Nari asked, incredulous. In your condition? You're going to get the courier ship ready, he said. I'll keep the welcoming committee busy. She stared at him. This is my problem, Tyler. And I brought you in. That makes it my problem, too, he shot back. Besides, I've spent decades making hell for people who thought they were in control of a situation. I'm good at it. Her jaw tightened. Then she held out her hand. Then give me a pistol. If you're not at that ship in 20 minutes, I'm coming to drag you there myself. He passed her sidearm. Deal. Maintenance Bay 7. Section C, lower level. When she gone, he pulled up a full schematic of the station. He knew every maintenance shaft, every blind corner now. That would be his real weapon. Computer, set maintenance drones to random patrol in sectors F through K, he ordered. Give them erratic movement patterns. Also, hand me internal sensor control on my tablet. A few taps later, the tablet showed a glowing map of the station, ready to track incoming heat signatures. Prepare to vent atmosphere in sections A and B on my command, he added. Prepare to vent atmosphere in sections A and B on my command, Tyler said. Safety protocols require. Override with authorization grant. Echo 7-3, he snapped. Override accepted. Venting ready on command. He slipped into the maintenance access and moved toward the docking hub, tablet in hand. Outside, the patrol craft slid into position, sleek and angular, red Vexari security sigils glowing on its hull. Docking clamps extended like metal claws. The internal sensors chimed. Airlock cycling. 6 Vexari life signatures entering the station, the computer reported calmly. Tyler watched them on the tablet. 6 bright heat dots stepping into GS, 117 like they owned it. Computer, initiate protocol sticks, he murmured. All over the station, the lights flickered, environmental settings shifted, and maintenance drones buzzed to life in random patterns. False motion and phantom heat sources began to dance across the map. The squad split exactly the way he'd expected, 2 toward the control room. two toward the residential sector, two toward the docking bay where Nari's pod had been. Good, Tyler muttered. Chase shadows. He used the maintenance tunnels like arterial highways, sliding down ladders and squeezing through narrow shafts. Where he could, he sealed bulkheads behind patrol teams, forcing them into longer routes. He triggered localized system glitches that demanded their attention, sudden gravity flickers, temperature spikes, short-range comm interference. Their commander's voice barked through the station speakers, promising lenient treatment if the fugitive and any human accomplices surrendered. Tyler rolled his eyes and muted the broadcast. He was 3 bins from a maintenance bay when he turned a corner and nearly collided with a Vexuri soldier. Both froze. The soldier recovered first, rifle snapping up. Tyler threw himself sideways, back screaming, as a burst of energy carved the air where his chest had been. He hit the deck, rolled behind a support beam, and returned fire. 2 quick shots to weaken the shield, a third on stun. The soldier dropped, armor smoking. Intruder in Section C7. A second soldier shouted over comms, already firing. Bolts sizzled against the bulkhead as Tyler ducked. One shot grazed a shoulder, sending numbness shooting down his arm. He bit off a curse, thumbed a flashbang, and lobbed it past the corner. The grenade went off in a flare of light and concussion. The second soldier staggered. Tyler changed position and tagged her with a clean stun burst. His tablet beeped an ugly update. The other teams were converging on his position. Computer, emergency protocol Sharon. Grant, Echo, 7-3. Warning, Sharon will cause structural damage to sections C5 through C9. Confirm. Confirm. Explosions rumbled through the deck. Controlled charges he'd planted in old, and used supports tore through corridors behind him. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, sealing off entire spines of the station. He didn't wait to admire the chaos. Panting, back on fire, he sprinted the last stretch to Maintenance Base 7. The courier ship loomed in the dim light like a sleeping predator, sleek, compact, diplomatic markings long since dulled by dust. Its ramp was down, inner lights glowing. Nari looked up from the cockpit as he staggered aboard. "You're late," she said, but the relief in her voice undercut the scolding. "I was about to come drag you here myself. Ran into some friends," Tyler said, dropping into the co-pilot's seat. "How bad is it?" "Quantum drive is aligned, but still finalizing spin-up," Nari replied. "Life support, NAV, primary systems are good. Shields are charging. I can launch us, but we can't jump yet." "Then we don't leave them with a working ship," Tyler said grimly. He brought up the station security interface on the courier's console. "Computer, transfer control of GS 117's defense systems to courier vessel." "Starlight," he improvised. "Warning, full transfer will remove standard safety locks." "Confirm." "Confirm." Station gun emplacements blinked onto their display. Tyler targeted the docked Vexuri patrol craft's main engines and power conduits. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Energy beams lanced from the station turrets, slamming into the patrol craft at point-blank range. On the screen, they watched shield flares overload, then the ship's rear section blossom into a spray of molten metal. "Engines offline," Nari confirmed, scanning. "They still have auxiliary power, but they're not chasing anyone soon." "You're up, pilot," Tyler said, forcing himself to focus through the pain. Nari's hands moved over the controls with practiced ease. The courier ship's engines rumbled to life, surprisingly smooth after 15 years of neglect. Maintenance bay doors peeled open like a metal iris, revealing the glittering emptiness beyond. As they slipped free, alarms echoed through the bay, Vexuri soldiers overriding bulkheads, trying to regain control of systems. "Tractor beams," Nari warned. "They're trying to lock us." "Computer," Tyler said hoarsely, "security protocol Orpheus. Overload non-critical systems. Drop tractor field priority." Lights across the station flickered again as power rerouted, then flared, then died in long segments. The tractor emitters went dark mid-pulse. "That's our cue," Nari said. The courier ship punched away from GS 117, angling toward the system's outer edge. Head for the fourth planet, Tyler suggested, watching the sensor display. Big gas giant, nice magnetic field. Good place to hide. She nodded and set the course, pushing standard engines as hard as she dared. Within minutes, the planet's shimmering bands dominated their view. Nari tucked the ship into the shadow of its rings, engaging the stealth suite to damp their emissions. Quantum drive initialization. 10 minutes, the computer reported. 10 minutes might as well have been 10 hours to Tyler's body. Now that adrenaline was fading, every nerve screamed. His back felt like it was being sawed from the inside out. "You're worse," Nari said quietly, studying his face. "Let me scan you. I just need my meds," he lied. "They're back in my quarters, which is not helpful." She ignored the protest and passed a medical scanner over his spine. Her expression darkened. "The metal near your spinal cord has shifted," she said. "It's pressing into nerves that control your breathing and lower body. Human doctors told you that already, didn't they?" "They said surgery would likely paralyze or kill me," Tyler said flatly. "So best option was keep you comfortable until you stop breathing. Hence the retirement home in space. And you accepted that." Nari sounded halfway between furious and hurt. "Didn't see many alternatives." Silence stretched for a heartbeat. "I can compound something stronger for the pain," she said at last. "It won't fix the damage, but it will keep you functioning." She reached for the med kit. He caught her wrist. "You're going to need those supplies where you're going," he said. Her brow ridges knit. "Where I'm going?" "When the drive is ready, you jump to the freehold," Tyler said. "I'll take the shuttle back from here. Once you're gone, the Vexuri have no reason to tear GS 117 apart for one broken human." "That's not a plan," she said flatly. "That's a slow-motion surrender." "It's my choice," he shot back. "This is how I decided to go out." The proximity alert chimed just then, harsh and insistent. "Warning," the computer said. "Multiple Vexuri vessels entering system. 1 cruiser, 2 escorts. Their vector suggests search and recovery operations." Nari's shoulders stiffened. "Reinforcements. They must have gotten a distress ping from the patrol ship before you fried its engines." She pulled up the sensor feed. 3 massive ships dropping in at the system edge. "They'll run wide sweeps," she said. "If we power up the quantum drive, they might catch the spike." Tyler watched the display, then looked at her. "You really think the freehold can help with this?" he asked quietly, touching his back. "The freehold has medical frameworks that make human hospitals look primitive," she said. "And Drakai healers who understand nervous systems in ways your people never had to. I can't promise a miracle. I can promise they'll try." He stared at the projection of GS 117, now a dot behind them, and the cluster of incoming Vexuri ships ahead. "Vessels are adjusting search pattern," the computer warned. "Time to probable detection at current emission levels. For minutes." "What's it going to be, Tyler?" Nari asked, eyes locked on his. "Drift back to that station to die alone. Or take a chance on people who don't see you as already finished." He let out a shaky breath. "Set course for the freehold," he said. "If I'm going to be stubborn, might as well do it in the direction of survival." Nari's scales brightened with relief. Her fingers flashed across the controls, feeding the coordinates into the navigation system. "Quantum drive ready," the computer announced. "Jump in 3, 2, 1. Starlight blurred. The stars outside stretched into bright lines, then dissolved into the strange haze of quantum space. Behind them, the Vexuri cruiser scanners swept an empty patch of normal space and found nothing. Tyler sank back, dizzy from pain and the jump's disorientation, and realized that, for the first time in a long time, his story might extend further than he'd planned. The journey to the Arcturus sector took 11 days of staggered jumps and cautious rerouting. Nari plotted a path that avoided known Vexuri patrol lanes and human bureaucratic choke points. When the drive rested, they drifted behind gas giants, dark moons, and unregistered debris fields. Between jumps, they built a strange routine. Mornings, course checks, system tweaks, hull scans. Afternoons, medicine and lectures. Nari brewed tailored pain inhibitors from the ship's supplies, layering Drakai biochemistry into standard compounds. She also walked him through freehold history, how an independent coalition of scientists and refugees had turned a small system into a sanctuary for those fleeing weaponization and exploitation. Evenings, stories. Tyler told her about emergency evac missions gone wrong and right, about pulling people out of burning stations and doing CPR in zero-G. Nari answered with tales of Drakai tradition, of rituals woven around heat and endurance, of her grandmother's naming chants. The pain never vanished, but under Nari's treatments it retreated from constant screaming to something he could think through. For the first time since his diagnosis, he started asking detailed questions about his own prognosis instead of shutting down whenever it came up. "You humans think in terms of what your tech can or can't do now," Nari said one day, adjusting a dose. "The Freehold thinks in terms of what might be possible if enough minds look at the problem differently." "Sounds expensive," Tyler said. "Hope usually is," she replied. On the 11th day, the navigation console pinged. "Outer Freehold marker ahead," the computer announced. Tyler leaned forward. The Arcturian star burned steady and bright on the view screen, surrounded by a cluster of planets and a halo of artificial structures, research stations, relay arrays, and small habitats. Their target was the third planet, Freehold Prime. Nari keyed a secure string into the comm system. "Freehold approach control. This is Courier Vessel Starlight requesting clearance and sponsorship confirmation," she said. "Identification code Nari Drakai 72. Passenger. Human. Designation Tyler Grant. Static." Then a holographic feed snapped on above the console. A Vexuri male appeared. Older, scales pale green with age, eyes bright and sharp. "This is Professor Taro of the Freehold Scientific Council," he said formally. Then his tone softened. "Nari, by the stars, you're alive. We heard the transport you were on was destroyed. I escaped before the attack," she said, unable to keep the relief out of her voice. "Requesting asylum for myself and my companion. And I heard rumors the rescue mission for my mother was successful," Taro said, smiling. "Sarai is here. She has already contributed significantly to our Drakai research. She will be very interested to see you walk through that door." Tyler watched Nari absorb that. Her scales brightened in patterns he'd learned to recognize as joy tangled with shock. Taro's gaze shifted to Tyler. "And this is our human guest?" "Tyler Grant," Tyler said. "Former Fleet Emergency Response, current work in progress." "We've been briefed on your condition," Taro replied. "Our medical teams are ready to evaluate you upon landing. We do not promise miracles, but we seldom agree with the word impossible." "Good enough for me," Tyler said. Freehold cleared them through an approach corridor lined with defense satellites and sensor nets. As they descended toward the planet, Tyler saw sprawling valleys, glittering cities built into hillsides, and towers of glass and metal woven with greenery. The main Freehold complex spread across a valley floor. Domes linked by enclosed bridges, tall spires, landing platforms arranged around a central hub. They touched down on a pad marked with an emblem. Several different species, symbols ringed around stylized star. The ramp lowered. A receiving party waited at the base. Humans, Vexuri, and others Tyler couldn't name. At the front stood a Vexuri woman with shimmering purple-blue scales and familiar ridges. "Nari," the woman whispered. "Mother," Nari breathed. They crossed the distance at almost the same time, colliding in a fierce embrace. Sarai wrapped her daughter in her arms, trembling, speaking in quick phrases that the translator could barely keep up with. Tyler stood at the edge of the scene, suddenly very aware of the fact that he was swaying on his feet. A human woman in Freehold medical colors approached him with a gentle professional smile. "Tyler Grant? I'm Dr. Helena Reeves," she said. "Our Neurum team has reviewed the preliminary data Nari forwarded. If you're able to walk, we'd like to start scans immediately." "I've been through worse walks," Tyler said, then almost proved himself wrong when his back spasmed. They guided him through clean, bright corridors into a medical wing that looked less like a hospital and more like a research lab crossed with a spa. Machines hummed softly, some human-designed, others utterly alien. Hours blurred into tests, imaging, neural mapping, assessments from specialists representing 3 different species. They talked in a mix of terms he recognized and ones that made his old training feel quaint. By evening, he was back in a private room with a wide window looking out on alien mountains. A cluster of doctors stood by his bed, with Nari and Sarai flanking them. "We've reviewed everything," Dr. Reeves said. "The shrapnel is dangerously close to critical neural clusters. Human surgeons were right to be cautious." However, Professor Taro flicked a hollow display to life, showing a 3D model of Tyler's spine. "Your tissues have been fighting back," he said. "There are early signs of regenerative attempts around the damaged region. Responses your doctors dismissed as scar formation. The Drakai approach to neural repair, combined with freehold microsurgery tools, gives us an angle." "In plain language?" Tyler asked. "We can attempt a staged procedure," Sarai said. Her voice had the same melodic undertone as Nari's, steadier with age. "First, we stabilize and redirect your body's own repair processes using Drakai-derived growth regulators. Then we use freehold microsurgical platforms to remove the shrapnel with minimum additional trauma. There are risks," Reeves added. "Worsening paralysis, infection, the possibility that the regeneration doesn't take." "And if we do nothing?" Tyler asked. "Your current timeline remains," Taro said. "Gradual loss of function. Eventual respiratory failure." Nari's hand tightened on the side of his bed. "We're not selling you false hope," Sarai added. "But we are offering real hope." Tyler took a long breath. For months, the only choice he'd had was how to die. Now, for the first time, he had a choice about whether to fight that outcome at all. "When do we start?" he asked. Nari's eyes glowed. The procedure wasn't a single dramatic surgery. It was a campaign. Over the next few weeks, Tyler went through cycles. Targeted injections, neural stimulations, precise micro-operations guided by arrays of tiny articulated tools, recovery periods punctuated by tests. There were bad days, nights when the pain spiked so hard he wondered if he'd made a mistake, mornings where his legs felt like dead weight. But there were also strange victories. A toe twitch where nothing had moved in months, a day where he realized he'd gone an entire afternoon without his chest clamping in panic. Nari visited every day she wasn't in the lab. Sometimes she arrived with data pads explaining exactly what the doctors were trying. Sometimes she brought stories or recordings from the freehold. Music, debates, odd cultural festivals. Sarai came too, alternating between fierce encouragement and quiet, watchful concern. 3 months after his arrival, Tyler stood on his own 2 feet on the Central Tower's observation deck, leaning on the rail more out of habit than necessity. The view took his breath in a much better way than before. Below, ships rose and fell from the sprawling spaceport. Cargo haulers, research vessels, sleek diplomatic craft. People from half a dozen species moved through the terminals, some clearly seasoned travelers, others nervous and clutching small bags like everything they owned was in them. His back still ached a little, a dull phantom of past agony. But the crushing, breath-stealing pain was gone. He could walk without counting steps. He could turn without feeling knives in his spine. Admiring the traffic flow or the safety protocols? Nari asked, joining him at the window. She wore a freehold xenobiology insignia on her jacket and looked more at ease here than she ever had in the pod, on the station, or on the run. "Both," Tyler admitted. "Your traffic controllers are good, but their contingency planning was a mess before I bullied them through a few simulations." "The council is impressed," she said. 3 potential accidents averted this week. They're already talking about expanding your role to broader security training. He shrugged, this time without a spike of agony. "If I can keep people alive before they need what's in that med wing, I'm doing my job." They watched a newly arrived ship taxi toward a fenced-off bay. "I got a ping from GS 117's automated diagnostics," Tyler said after a moment. "The station's still limping along. The Vexari must have decided it wasn't worth salvaging." "Do you miss it?" Nari asked. He thought about the quiet corridors, the hum of old systems, the deliberate solitude he'd chosen. Sometimes I miss the silence, he said. Then he glanced at her, but not as much as I thought I would. Her scales rippled in a pattern he now recognized as amusement. For someone who bought an entire station just to be alone, that's a big admission, she said. Turns out being alive comes with annoying side effects, he said, like caring what happens next. Speaking of next, she prompted. He smiled slightly. I've been thinking about the courier ship, he said. Starlight. It's sitting in a hangar collecting dust. Feels wrong, given how hard we worked to keep it and ourselves intact. She tilted her head. You want to give it a new job? There are more people like you out there, he said quietly. Drakai the Vexuri want in cages. Other species with unusual traits someone thinks can be turned into weapons. And there are humans with diagnoses like mine, stuck on doomed timelines because their doctors don't know what's possible here. You're thinking transport missions, Nari said, eyes brightening. Extraction and delivery to the freehold. Discreetly. I know evacuation and crisis logistics, Tyler said. You know Vexuri systems, borders, and the people still hiding or trying to get out. Together, we could get a lot of desperate folks to a place that can actually help them. There are already messages waiting, Nari admitted. Contacts in Vexuri territory asking for routes, safe houses, ways to disappear. We've lacked someone who can coordinate the practical side across species. The council will want a full proposal, he said. Risk assessments, routes, support frameworks. I've started drafting something. Of course you have, she said with a small smile. What are you calling this plan of yours? He hesitated, then decided to risk it. Phoenix Protocol, he said, for people who thought their story was over, rising from the ashes of whatever nearly destroyed them. Something softened in her face. Very human, she said warmly. Finding rebirth in the middle of catastrophe. Says the dragon lineage scientist who refused to be turned into a weapon, he countered. They stood side by side, watching a cluster of new arrivals disembark from a shuttle below. One human walked with a stiff, halting gait that reminded Tyler uncomfortably of his own former stride. Two freehold medics met them with calm, practiced care. Do you ever think about the version of you who stayed on that station? Nari asked. Sometimes, he said. You got the ending you planned. I'm starting to think planned endings are overrated. She nodded. Stories that stop too early never reveal what they could have become, she said. Tyler slid a data chip across the rail toward her. What's this? She asked. The latest draft of Phoenix Protocol, he said. Ship modifications, mission parameters, potential contacts, early funding prospects. I like you listed as co-lead. Couldn't do this without you. Nari tucked the chip into a pocket. Then let's show the council how stubborn a human mechanic and a dragon-blooded scientist can be when they aim in the same direction, she said. Outside the tower window, the freehold moved with purposeful energy, a crossroads of refugees, researchers, and travelers looking for something better. Above it all, the stars stretched out, not as a bleak void but as possibility. Tyler Grant had bought a dying station at the edge of nowhere because he wanted a controlled fade-out. Instead, a wounded Drakai in a broken pod had crashed into his solitude and dragged him into a new trajectory, one where endings became beginnings, where no hope turned into let's see what we can build. And that's where this story wraps. If you listened all the way to the end, don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Tyler and Nari's journey? Your feedback, good or bad, helps improve future stories. And if you want more tales like this one, remember to like the video, subscribe, and stick around. Another story is already waiting for you on the screen.